Welcome to the Pardus channel. Today we explain Genesis chapter 4 in a clear and simple way, step by step. Now, after Adam and Eve are exiled from the Garden of Eden, you might think things would start fresh, maybe a peaceful new world. Well, not exactly. Humanity's story kicks off with some pretty intense family drama. In Genesis chapter 4, we're going to see it all: the very first birth, the first major sibling rivalry, and, tragically, the world's first murder. This chapter, it really sets the stage for the core conflicts that are going to define the human story from here on out.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start by looking at life outside the garden, then dive into the two offerings that really ignite the conflict. We'll see how sin is described as this predator, and then we'll trace the aftermath of the murder and follow the line of Cain. And finally, we'll see a glimmer of hope with a new beginning through the birth of Seth.
All right, so let's set the scene. Our story begins with the harsh new reality outside of Eden. Adam and Eve, they're not in paradise anymore. Now they have to work, they have to struggle to survive. And it's right here, in this brand new, difficult world, that they start the very first human family.
Okay, pay close attention to Eve's reaction here to the first ever human birth. Her words, "with the help of the Lord," they reveal something really important. Despite being kicked out of the garden, that connection to God isn't completely gone. She still recognizes his hand in creation. And the name she picks, Cain, it actually sounds like the Hebrew word for brought forth or acquired, which just highlights her feeling that she has, in fact, gotten this child from God.
Then comes their second son, Abel. And right away, he chooses a different path, which immediately sets up this classic dynamic. You've got Cain, who works the very ground that was cursed because of his parents' sin. And then there's Abel, who becomes a shepherd, tending to flocks out in the open pastures. These two very different jobs, well, they end up foreshadowing two very, very different destinies. And this brings us to a really fateful moment. Both brothers decide to worship God, and they each bring an offering from their work. But, the nature of their gifts and the way God responds to them, that's what's going to set these two on a truly tragic path.
The little details in the text here are absolutely crucial. Cain brings some of the fruits of the soil. It's kind of generic, right? It sounds like he just met the basic requirement. But look at Abel. He brings fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. That language tells you he brought the absolute best, the prime cuts, the very cream of his livelihood. One gift feels like an obligation. The other feels like an offering of true excellence.
And the text is super direct about what happens next. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but not on Cain's. So this is the big question at the heart of the whole story. Why? Was it about the offering itself, a blood sacrifice versus produce? Or was it something deeper? Most interpretations will tell you it was all about the heart of the person giving the gift. Abel gave his very best with a genuine spirit, while Cain's offering was, maybe, half-hearted, just something he felt he had to do. And Cain's response, wow, it is so profoundly human. It's not sadness, it's not confusion, it's just pure rage. It's that burning feeling of injustice and jealousy. He feels rejected, and that rejection just curdles into this deep, simmering anger that you could see on his face. It's visible to everyone, including God. But here's the thing. God doesn't just reject Cain's offering and then leave. No, he actually engages with Cain's anger directly. And what he says next isn't a punishment, it's a direct warning and an incredible offer of personal choice and power. This verse is honestly one of the most powerful in all of Genesis. Sin is described like a predator, literally crouching at the door, wanting to pounce on Cain. But the critical part, the part we all need to hear, is the command, "You must master it." Right here, the story establishes this core principle of free will. God tells Cain straight up that while the temptation to sin is real, the power to overcome it is entirely within him. But tragically, Cain rejects the warning. As you can see, the path from feeling rejected to feeling angry to committing violence is terrifyingly swift. He just ignores this divine intervention and instead chooses premeditation. He deceives his own brother, lures him out to a field, and his internal rage just explodes into the world's very first murder. Okay, so now we get to the aftermath. The crime is done, and there's this deafening silence where Abel's life used to be. This is the moment of confrontation, where we see how justice and, surprisingly, mercy operate in this new world. So when God asks Cain where his brother Abel is, his response is this iconic, totally chilling question. Am I my brother's keeper? It's a lie, but it's a lie wrapped in defiance. He's not just denying what he did,
He's denying the very idea of human responsibility. He's basically saying, his life is not my problem. It is the ultimate severing of the family bond. And the consequences are severe, and they're also kind of poetic. Since he made the ground drink his brother's blood, that very same ground will no longer work for him. And for a farmer, that's a devastating curse. He's exiled, just like his parents were. But now he's a restless wanderer, forever disconnected. And he complains. He says the punishment is more than he can bear, fearing that his crime has made him a target for anyone he meets.
This brings us to a really common misconception, the mark of Cain. People often think of it as a brand of shame, some kind of scar. But the text reveals it's the exact opposite. It's actually an act of divine mercy. The mark is a protective sign, a warning to others not to kill him, and it establishes that ultimate justice belongs to God, not to humanity.
So Cain goes into exile, to the land of Nod, which, fittingly, means wandering. But his story doesn't just end there. He has a family, and we now follow the lineage he creates, a line that is marked by both incredible human innovation and an escalating, terrifying darkness. And here we see this fascinating paradox, right? The lineage of the first murderer is also the source of civilization's first great achievements. Cain's descendants built the first city, they create music, and they master metalworking. It kind of suggests that human society, for all its amazing innovation, is being built on a violent and fractured foundation. And the violence, it definitely escalates. Just look at Cain's descendant, a guy named Lamech. He takes God's merciful promise to protect Cain, that sevenfold vengeance, and he twists it into a personal, terrifying boast of his own brutality. He brags to his wives about killing a man for just wounding him, and he claims for himself a 77-fold vengeance. The sin of his ancestor hasn't just been repeated, it has been magnified beyond belief. But just as the story of Cain's line reaches its absolute darkest point, the narrative shifts back to Adam and Eve. And right here, we get a new branch on the human family tree, a real glimmer of hope in all the darkness.
Adam and Eve have another son, and they name him Seth, which means granted or appointed. And Eve's words here are so important. She sees him as God's replacement for Abel, the son that Cain murdered. So this isn't just another child. This is a conscious restart, a chance to build a new lineage founded on righteousness, not on jealousy.
And the chapter ends with this really profound statement. While Cain's descendants are busy building cities and boasting about violence, Seth's line begins to do something completely different. They begin to call on the name of the Lord. This is the beginning of formal worship, of humanity choosing to turn back toward God. It really establishes the two paths that humanity is going to walk from this point forward.
So, what are the big takeaways from this incredibly intense chapter? Well, first, there's the power of choice. God told Cain he could master his sin. The choice was his, just like it's ours. Second, the devastating danger of jealousy. It is a poison that, if you leave it unchecked, it just destroys everything. Third, the story gives a resounding yes to that question, am I my brother's keeper? And finally, it shows us a world where actions have terrible consequences, but also a world where divine mercy can still find a way through.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Cain's question was meant to deflect blame and deny responsibility, but the story flips it and turns it into this fundamental moral challenge for all of us. What does it really mean to be responsible for one another? To be our brothers, our sisters, our neighbor's keeper in the world we live in today? So to recap, Genesis 4 really shows us humanity's turbulent start outside the garden. It's a raw, unflinching look at how jealousy, when we fail to master it, leads to tragedy. But it also establishes the two paths that lie before all of us, the way of violence and self-glorification, and the way of hope and turning back to God. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.